All right, so there is a cheat code of sorts to playing absolutely fantastic golf, and that cheat code is impact. Everything else you do in your golf swing doesn't mean anything until we get this position exactly like the pros are doing it. If you look, every single pro in the world, they look pretty daggone similar at impact. Well, I'm gonna walk you through it, all the way from toes, knees, hips, shoulders, the entire body, how to get to this perfect impact position, and I guarantee you it'll pay dividends much more than anything else you could do. So first let's learn kind of the number one fundamental of this. We have to deliver the club with a square face, which we know. We also have to deliver this club with shaft lean to be able to take loft off and compress this golf ball. So pros, they're taking about 30% off of the natural loft of the club. So I got a 9-iron here that's low 40s loft. If I take 30% of that off, that means I'm getting all the way down at around 30 degrees, maybe even slightly under 30 degrees at impact. All that means is if the shaft is straight up and down at impact, so if I'm hitting the golf ball, I'm standing up out of my posture, I'm flipping, that shaft is going to be straight up and down. I need that shaft to be leaning forward about 15 degrees with my short irons, slightly even more than that if you go all the way into a lob wedge, and then it'll gradually be less and less with your shorter irons and as you go into, or longer irons and you go into the driver. The main reason for that is just the ball position changes. So if I got my 9-iron here in the middle of my stance, even slightly back, that's 15 degrees of shaft lean. As this ball gets slightly and slightly farther forward, I don't have to change my swing at all, but if this is the ball position of a 3-iron, all of a sudden there's not quite as much shaft lean. So the cool thing about this, you get it down with a short iron, you get enough shaft lean, and it's going to carry over to all your clubs just by changing the ball position. Really get your short irons down, you don't have to worry about the rest. So here at that 9-iron, I'm launching it at 19 degrees, 19.7, even though there's, again, over 40 degrees of loft on this club. And I'm getting a dynamic loft is somewhere around 30. So if I come over here to my computer, I'll toggle the screen and we'll see that on that shot, I can highlight it for you. I'm right at 30.5 degrees of dynamic loft or lofted impact. So that's the foundation of everything else that we're going to build. So then how do we get there with the rest of our body? Well, start with the toes. I need my weight to be shifting to the left to be able to get that kind of shaft lean. If you imagine if I'm on my right foot here, put all your weight on your right foot, and I'm going to try to get this shaft leaning forward as much as I can. I've really got my arms extended there. Well, it's not really doing much at all. All of a sudden I go to my left foot and my weight is transferring left. Now I can get a ton of shaft lean. So the weight has to be shifting over to the left. You're going to feel pressure on the ball of your foot, and it's going to feel like your weight goes to the right in the swing early, and then through impact, all your weight's transitioning left. Your left leg is kind of bracing back up into your body to keep you from sliding forward, and it's allowing you to rotate when you do that. So your foot is kind of pushing back up into you, which creates rotation, and it keeps you able to get on your left side without sliding in front of it. That's your first piece. Now your right foot is just as important. You need to be having pressure on the inside of your right toe, and you need to be feeling like the right heel is coming off the ground. If the heel doesn't come off the ground, I can't open my body and get the shaft lean that I need. Now if we move forward to the knees, they're doing a pivot action. So my right knee is going forward and my left knee is kind of clearing back. So back swing my knees do this, down swing my knees do that, and the more of this type of a pivot action, right knee goes toward the ball, left knee kind of clears out of the way, the more of that I get, the more shaft lean, and the better I can compress the golf ball. Again, if we don't get the shaft lean, it's not going to sound like the great players. They hit it, and you think to yourself, wow, that has a different ring to it than what mine are doing, much heavier of a hit. You ever heard somebody say a heavy hit? That's exactly what I'm training you here today. All right, so let's move up to the hips now. As my weight shifts to the left, my knees pivot, and that gets my hips to clear open. Now, most importantly, I want to get my belt buckle in front of the golf ball as this is happening. So I don't want to stay back here and open up my hips, belt buckle behind the golf ball. I want to get that weight shift to the left, open my hips up, and now all of a sudden, my belt buckle is way up here. That's going to get my weight up there. It's going to clear my hips out. Almost imagine your belt buckle turning to where it's kind of going toward your left knee or going toward the target as that's happening. Now, here's a big key with your hips that most people don't get. A lot of times, we think we need to hit at the golf ball really hard, and we stand up and kind of throw the club at the golf ball. That's burning up all the energy too early, and I'm staying out of my posture. a great key for this is feeling like my hips get lower to the ground. Or you can almost imagine that there's a plane of glass here that's kind of at a low angle, and I'm feeling like I'm getting my entire body under that plane of glass so I can swing in at a shallower angle. And that brings me to the next point of this really tour quality impact, which is I can't be having my handle go this way. Anytime, even if I have shaft lean, if I lean the handle up like this, so if I do this at all where the handle goes away from my body, you see this big angle here, I've even seen people teach this, that pulls the heel of the club off the ground and it raises the sweet spot higher into the air. That's why you're probably struggling when you get those really tight lies to hit it on the sweet spot. We have to get lower, shallow this club out, kind of let my hips sit down, and then I'm letting this club come into the ground very, very flush. People will say, well, I just need to get my lie angle adjusted. There's no amount of lie angle adjustment that can happen if I'm standing up out of my posture and flipping it that'll get the sole of the club flat. If I do make it flat, it's going to cause a bunch of problems with other things. So we don't want to go down that route. We want to do it the way the pros are doing it, right? Because those are the guys that are hitting it consistently solid. Now, if we move up the chain there a little bit more, so we've talked about the hips need to kind of squat down. My belt buckle needs to get toward my left foot. I did skip the knees a little bit. I want a little bit of flex in the knees, left knee and right knee at impact. It's not all the flex isn't going out of those knees until what we call the straight line release out in front. But I'm really letting that lean forward. Now from there, what about my chest and my upper body? This is a really big point here. If I'm going to get into a good impact position, I need to be behind the golf ball with my upper body. Now that's crazy because you just said, hey Clay, you got to get your belt buckle in front, but your upper body behind. That's exactly right. And the reason for that is I have to be in a position where I can deliver this club from the inside. And if my upper body starts to slide in front, that's going to kick the club steeper and more over the top. So a great cheat for this is I like to think of my shirt buttons or my sternum. I want to have it slightly behind the golf ball as my belt buckle's in front. So I'm getting my weight to shift to the left. My knees are pivoting, so all my lower body is going toward the target, but my upper body is staying behind the golf ball. That allows me to get into a position where I can get shaft lean, but now you'll see shirt buttons kind of at the golf ball or slightly behind. Nose is definitely behind the golf ball. I don't want it to be way back here. I'm not falling back. I'm just shifting to the left and keeping my nose just ever slightly behind the golf ball. That's going to get you in that perfect impact position. Now, there's a lot of questions on how do I know if I'm doing it the right way? And there's a really cool training aid that I like. It's called the DST compressor. And the more I use this thing, the more I like it. So here I have an 8-iron, and what it has is a bent club shaft. So what you end up doing is to get this club to sit flat on the ground, now all of a sudden I have to get that shaft lean that all the pros have. And to make it even easier, there's a line that's vertical on this club that shows me the right amount of shaft lean. So if I go ahead and just go to impact like we just talked about and kind of practice my impact position, my club is flat on the ground, my hands are way in front with the shaft lean, and if I'm looking at the hosel of this club, that line is vertical straight up and down. If I start to lean it back this way, all of a sudden the line's leaning too far that way. If I get too much shaft lean, so if you're wondering, am I overdoing it? If I get too much shaft lean, the line's leaning too far forward that way. So I just got to get this line perfectly vertical, and I know I'm getting the right amount of shaft lean. So this is a really cool training aid. Now, if you want one of these, I'll put a link down below in the description. We worked out a special deal with Bertie Cordell, who the designer and inventor of this fantastic training aid. And if you follow that link, it's going to be as cheap as you can find it anywhere on the internet. Now, we get a few bucks every time you buy one from there. You don't have to have this. It's just I've used this, and it answers a lot of questions of whether or not you're doing it the right way. So if you do want to get one, always helps us out, helps us to grow the channel, make these great videos. I really appreciate you for doing that. But again, we don't have to have one of these. It's just a cool way of making things easier. So let me go ahead and hit a couple shots with this now that I feel like I'm in front. And again, let's go over some of these keys, and then I'll build out into the shoulders and the arms what this great impact is. So let me go ahead and hit one here. Belt buckle in front, but nose behind. There we go. Man, that sounded fantastic. And what I found sometimes is if you're not getting quite enough shaft lean, you might even overdraw this club. You see, what happens is the more I get shaft lean, the more it opens the face. So you might overdraw this club the first couple times you use it. That's an awesome little feedback mechanism for me there. Wasn't a bad shot, but I probably could have used 2 or 3 degrees more shaft lean here. So if I wanted to do that, let's talk about how I would do that. Let's go up to the shoulders now. Now with the shoulders, if I want a bunch of shaft lean, the right shoulder has to rotate and the left shoulder has to rotate up out of the way. The right shoulder has to rotate forward and down, but not letting my nose slide in front. So I need to get my right shoulder under my chin as much as possible, which is going to push my hands farther and farther in front, but not doing this to get it over there. So basically, long story short, if I put a club across my shoulders, all I'm doing is rotating my shoulders open more, and I'm rotating them in a very steep angle like this. So I'm staying in my posture. My right shoulder goes down as my left shoulder goes up, kind of like if I had a fan blade here with my arms, and I just tilted that fan this way. So my shoulder's going forward, but I haven't slid in front of it. Now, if I do that, that gives me tons more room to now get my arm farther in front. See how much more I can push my right hand in front when that right shoulder goes down and I rotate more open? Left shoulder goes up. I can get a ton of shaft lean there. Let's go ahead and try out another little easy 8-iron here with this DST compressor club. There we go, and much better. I like the shaft lean I got with that, and you can see immediately I started to straighten that out a little bit. So that's the shoulders. The more I can open them, and the more I get into what's called right side bend. So what I'm doing here is I'm bending my body to the right, and I'm opening it, or a simpler way of doing that is a tilted kind of fan blades this way. That allows me to get more and more shaft lean as much as I want to. Now, if I go from there out to the hands and arms, this is the big piece that most people get wrong. You see, I have to square the club face up if I'm going to hit good shots. And I already talked about how the more I lean my hands in front, the more the face is open. This is why it doesn't work for most players. This is why most players struggle to get the right impact position. They try some swings out. It opens the club, it goes way to the right, and then they go back to flipping it and doing the wrong impact position. So what we need to do here is to square the club face like the pros are doing it. And one of my best videos that I've ever done with this is what's called the tennis racket drill. I want to share with you exactly how to do that drill and learn how to square the club face up the right way with the hands and wrist like the pros are doing, rather than the wrong way, which would be rolling that club over and throwing the club to square up the club face. So I'm going to play a preview of that video here in just 1 second. All you need to do is go ahead and click on the card that pops up on the screen. If you don't see that card, don't worry. Go down to the link below in the description, and you can get instant access to that video from there. It'll help you a ton with getting shaft lean and squaring the club up the right way. Until you learn to get this face perfectly squared up, man, it's hard to get shaft lean. Once you get the face squared up the right way, I can just turn through there, get as much as I want to, and I know that's going to be dead solid. So best of luck. I can't wait to show you the tennis racket drill. Let's go and get started. Good player problems. We're going to talk about shallowing that club shaft out as we're starting down, as we're doing this rotating of the face that we worked on in the last video. As we start this downswing, what you'll see with basically all of the top players is instead of coming kind of over the top and letting the hands come out away from their body, letting the club come out away from their body, again coming down steep into the ball and then having to open up, kind of fillet open the face and add loft to it. The flattening of the shaft should happen as soon as we start down. So as we start this downswing, what we want to have happening here, you can imagine that if I draw a line from the hosel of my club up through my right elbow, that's my swing plane line, my elbow plane. As I go to the top of the swing, I'm going to be slightly above that. And then as I start down, I want my hands to start to shallow out. I want the club to shallow out inside of this elbow plane. And at the same time,